I'm creating this video as a warning for all of you guys that are holding NAT stock or DHT stock or any other oil tanker stock. These stocks are extremely popular these days with the whole fluctuation and everything going on with the oil markets. And I know a lot of new investors have flocked into these kind of stocks in the last couple of weeks. The two reasons I hear people holding this stock is, one, oil demand is probably going to keep dropping, which means you're going to need storage for these oil barrels. And two, the dividends. The dividends that these companies paid during good times is massive. Now, I want to walk through both of these scenarios with you here today and pretty much debunk both of them, I would say. So if you're holding these stocks for either of these two reasons, you want to pay close attention to this video. Either way, guys, whether you like oil tanker stocks or not, drop a like down below to show your support for this channel. But without further ado, guys, let's get into it. So the two most popular stocks in this space by far is DHT Tankers and NAT, Nordic American Tankers. Now, I know most people here hold NAT, so I will be focusing on that in a couple of minutes. But what we did have come out recently was DHT with their earnings. So I want to spend some time looking at that because it can give us good insight as to what we can expect from NAT. We can see here that DHT came out with an earnings EPS of 44 cents per share, missing analyst expectations by around 6 cents per share. But they beat on revenue by $10.64 million. But that's not the impressive part here, guys. The impressive part is the monster 77.7% year-over-year increase in revenue. Looking further at the statement, they had strong revenue in the quarter, positive net income, and increased their cash position while reducing their interest-bearing debt from Q4. They also revealed, similar to NAT with their $70,000 a day charge, that they were earning around $64,400 per day in the quarter as prices skyrocketed. But now you must be saying, Nick, that does not include Q2, does not include April so far. These reports are only for January, February, March, and we all know that the real demand for these prices picked up pretty much in April. And you guys are absolutely correct here. Because in April, 66% of their capacity was booked at an average rate of $110,400 per day, which is absolutely bonkers income for this company. And at this rate of $110,400 per day, they have 1,122 days booked, resulting in $123.8 million in revenue that will be realized from these bookings. So it's actually pretty incredible that DHT and pretty much all the oil tanker stocks are going to be making some massive profits and just going to be making it rain here, at least in the next few months. So now, naturally, on all of this positive news, you have incredible demand for their storage. They had a really strong earnings report with massive revenue growth. Obviously, the stock price reacted positively to this, right? Not quite, guys. Here you can actually see that the stock price is actually down 7.45% going into these earnings, but it was also only up a measly 1.76% after hours on these results as well. Now, as of recording this video, I'm not really sure how the stock will perform the next trading day. I'll have a screenshot here on the screen if I have that information. But I would assume, just based on this after-hour action, that the buyers are pretty much dried up on this stock. So I just want to let this soak in for a second. Despite having probably the best and highest booking rates in the company's history, the stock price is up a measly 1.76%, and who knows what happens this next trading day when it's open to the general public and retail investors see this poor reaction. What is going on? How is this possible? Why did this happen? Let me explain. On the 8th of March, we had a dispute between the Saudis and Russia, and this was pretty much the beginning of the collapse in oil prices. Then in the back half of March, you know exactly what happened. We had countries all over the world go into lockdown, and any traveling, like air travel, for example, was cut by upwards of 90%, and in some markets, a high 90%. Now, as a result, naturally, global demand for oil plunged, and many rushed into these tanker stocks to store the oil temporarily in hopes that prices would eventually stabilize over time. And of course, the goal is once it does stabilize, they can then sell the oil once again and not take a massive loss on these barrels of oil because of weak demand in prices. Okay, so this makes sense, and on this news, DHT was up nearly 28% since March 8th. So doesn't that make you think, maybe this huge movement up accounted for the increase in demand from these tanker stocks. In my opinion, the smart money, if you will, got into the stock in early March, enjoyed the run-up while retail investors like Robinhood investors bought into the stock in April, and then most likely dumped their shares near the highs. Now, retail investors think they found an easy way to make money here on these tanker stocks, and many are getting burned. Now guys, in the last 5 days, NAT stock is down over 23% after dropping over 13% in the last trading day when I recorded this video. In fact, if you bought into the stock anytime after April 22nd and held onto the stock until today, you would be break even on your position and have no gains. The real run-up in the stock again came in if you bought in, say, around March 9th, when things actually started to escalate, and if you did buy around that time, you'd be up almost 100% since then. So really, you gotta sit down and ask yourself the tough questions. The stock is up 100% from when all of these issues started arising. Everyone out there knows that oil demand is weak. Everyone out there knows that oil tanker stocks are probably going to make a lot of money here, and the CEO confirmed that for NAT stock, and then with DHT, we got confirmation from the earnings report. Yes, they're making a ton of money. Everyone knows that. So maybe, just maybe, a lot of this good news is priced in. Just remember that when retail investors get wind of a good investment, remember Bitcoin, remember the green stocks, remember a lot of these pump and dump plays, retail investors get in towards the end, smart money has probably exited their position by that point, made massive gains on their position by that point, and then retail investors are left bag holding. So now that you have hopefully a better understanding of the situation, let me address the 2 points I made at the beginning of this video for NAT shareholders for reasons as to why they're holding the stock. The first was that oil demand is going to continue dropping, and this is going to be good for oil tanker stocks. Guys, in my honest opinion, I think that the bottom really for oil demand is in. Just think about it. For the last few weeks, about 6 weeks or so, most countries around the world have been on a lockdown. Airplanes have been flying at very, very tiny capacities. About like 5 to 10% of their overall fleets have been flying. People haven't been driving around very much because they're pretty much indoors all day. So as you can imagine, there was no real demand for oil all over the world. But now we're into May. Things are going to start opening back up. You can see some states already starting to open back up. Some countries already starting to open back up. Flights are going to start going around the countries once again. And guess what? Oil demand is going to start picking up slowly once again. This doesn't mean that oil demand is going to get to where it was, say, in January, but it does mean that oil demand is going to be higher than where it was back in March and April. So because of this, I would say that if you're expecting oil demand to be even worse than it was, say, in April, when everything around the world was just halted and there was just barely any travel going on, I think that it's a losing battle, and I don't think that's going to happen. So just remember, as oil demand starts picking back up, these oil tanker stocks won't be able to charge as much to store their oil because people are going to be consuming that oil now, and companies are not going to have as much of a need to store their oil. The second reason people hold stocks like this, especially NAT stock, is for the dividends. I've seen so many people say, I'm holding this stock because it's going to pay me out massive dividends. Unfortunately, this is a trap that I see a lot of beginner investors fall into, and sometimes even more experienced investors, especially if you're not familiar with how dividends work. So to clarify, let's first define what a dividend is and how it's paid out. From Investopedia, a dividend is the distribution of a portion of the company's earnings that is paid to its shareholders. It's seen as a reward, if you will, for holding the company's stock. But guys, here's the important line that you need to pay attention to and understand. Dividend payouts result in the stock price adjusting. So if a dividend, say, is $1 per share, the stock price will drop by $1 per share once that dividend is paid out. So really, dividends are not free money in this sense. Did you really think it was that easy to make money in the stock market? Many investors that have been in here for a while know how difficult it can be at times to make money in the stock market. And you think that a beginner investor could just figure out this whole dividend strategy and make a ton of money in no time? Guys, think about it. If that was the case, you could just create a strategy where all you did was buy dividend stocks and buy them right before they pay the dividend and sell them right after they pay the dividend and enjoy your gains on that. But that's not how it works, because as soon as they pay out that dividend, the stock price physically drops by that amount. Now, it doesn't mean that the stock price can't rebound and recover from that, but it does mean that you're actually physically losing that amount in the share price when the dividend is paid out. And this happens automatically in the back end. You can't control it. So don't think that you can outsmart the system here, because it just will not work. Now, if you still don't believe me, let's take a look at the charts here for NAT stock. And let's go back to 2015, 2016. And the reason I want to look back here around this time frame was because the company was doing well around this time, and as a result was paying their shareholders high dividends, just like they're expected to do here in 2020. Now, if you look closely, every single time there was a dividend payout, guess what happened? The stock price declined on the payout day. Do you really think that this is a coincidence? If so, maybe you need to study up on how dividends work a bit more, because guys, this is not a coincidence, and there's no easy money to be made in the stock market, even through dividends. Now guys, I don't know how the stock price will react in the next few months. I don't know if the stock price will go up 100% from today's prices after they report their earnings. And likewise, I don't know if the stock price will drop after they report their earnings. Your guess is as good as mine, but what I will say is that this is not an investment. This is pure speculation and gambling. But personally, just my opinion here, based on the facts that are out there, I believe that when NAT stock does report their earnings, there's a higher likeliness that the stock price drops and investors aren't too thrilled with what they report, because again, a lot of it is expected and priced in my opinion. We can see this from how DHT stock has reacted after they reported their earnings. Many would have probably expected the stock to pop maybe 20, 30, 40, 50% after reporting this, but it's pretty much flat after hours. And I'll put a screenshot up here of how it's doing the next trading day as well. Clearly, a lot of investors were not happy with what they saw, and probably a lot of them are bailing out on the stock right now. Guys, I know I may have hit a nerve or two in this video, especially if you're an investor that holds any of these stocks, but my intention here was not to say I told you so, but rather it is to teach you that gambling is not the same as investing, speculation is not the same as investing, and if you think you've figured out something where no one else has, chances are other people have figured that out as well. Anything that's public knowledge is priced into the market. At least that's what I believe, because there's algorithms that can figure out this information much quicker than a human can. Now, if you have some insider knowledge, maybe that's a different story altogether, but then you want to be careful with the SEC. But either way, my point is that anything that you think you know that the market doesn't know, guys, the market doesn't know that, and it's probably priced in the stock. Now guys, I want to hear from you what you're planning to do with your NAT investment. I know a lot of you are going to say, I'm down on my position, but I'm going to hold until earnings, or I'm going to hold until the dividend because that's where I'm going to make my money back. I really do hope for you guys that that does happen. Chances are it may not happen, but either way guys, let me know in the comment section down below what you're planning to do with your position. I hope you enjoyed this video, hope you learned something from this video. Don't forget to invest positively guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.